Welcome to Monk's Temple. Welcome. Just by being here right now, pressing play on this recording, you've done something quietly radical. You've paused the endless outward motion of your life and turned your attention inward. In a world that constantly demands we look elsewhere, at screens, at notifications, at the next task, the next goal, this simple act of turning inward is the beginning of everything. I'm so glad you're here, whether you're listening in the quiet hours of early morning, tucked into bed, or taking a moment during a busy day. Wherever you are in this beautiful world, you've just joined a silent community of seekers, all of us gently rowing our boats back toward the shore of ourselves. Before we go further, get comfortable. Wrap yourself in something soft, dim the lights, shift your posture so your body feels supported. This isn't just another video to passively consume. This is an experience. Over the next few hours, we're going on a journey into the very heart of who you are. A journey to dismantle a story you've been told your entire life, the story that you are not enough, that something is missing, that happiness is just over the next horizon. There's a background noise that follows most of us through life. We get so used to it that we stop noticing it, like the hum of a refrigerator or distant traffic. It's always there, coloring our experience. This is the subtle, pervasive sense of lack. A quiet voice that whispers, "This is good, but it could be better. You're okay, but you'd be great if you just fixed that one thing." This isn't depression. It's more insidious. It's the psychological equivalent of an idling engine, always running, burning fuel, creating a low-grade vibration of discontent. We spend our lives trying to add things to ourselves, achievements, relationships, possessions, to finally turn that engine off. We believe that once we have the right job, the right partner, the right house, then finally the hum will stop. But think about the last time you got something you really wanted. For a day, maybe two, there was satisfaction. Then the hum returned. The goalpost moved. Okay, I got that, but what about the next level? What about my colleague who is doing even better? This is the fundamental trap of the conditioned mind. Buddhism calls this underlying dis-ease dukkha. It's the first noble truth, the recognition that this sense of unsatisfactoriness is a fundamental part of the conditioned human experience. But the Buddha wasn't being pessimistic. He was being a diagnostician. Imagine a doctor saying, "You have a fever." That's not a judgment, it's an observation. It's the first step to getting better. Recognizing dukkha in our own lives is the same. It's not about saying life is suffering. It's about seeing that this background hum is the symptom of a deeper misunderstanding. Think of your mind as a smartphone. This sense of lack is like having hundreds of apps running in the background. The phone feels sluggish, the battery drains. And what do? We try to fix it by downloading more apps. If I just get the right meditation app, the right goal-setting app, then my phone will work perfectly. But the problem isn't a missing app. The problem is the background processes. We spend our lives trying to download new experiences to fix a problem caused by the background hum of wanting. We try to solve seeking with more seeking. And it never, ever works. The first step to freedom is not to get what you want. The first step is to notice the hum. To just become aware of it. Ah, there it is. That feeling that something is missing. Just noticing it, without trying to fix it or satisfy it, is like closing those background apps. The system calms down on its own. Let me share a story. There was a woman named Clara who collected empty jars. Jars of every size and shape lined the shelves of her home. She spent weekends searching for the perfect jar, convinced that if she could just find the right one, her life would feel more organized, more complete. She had jars for things she might need someday, jars for memories she wanted to preserve. One day a friend visited and asked, "Clara, what are you planning to put in all these jars?" Clara stopped. She realized she had been so focused on finding containers that she had forgotten to consider what she actually wanted to fill them with. She had been collecting the means to hold happiness without ever experiencing happiness itself. This is what the hum of lack does to us. It makes us collectors of future possibilities while completely blinding us to the fullness of what is already present. The Buddha saw that we are like Clara, filling our lives with the promise of future satisfaction while ignoring the simple completeness of this very moment. He taught that the way out isn't to find better jars, but to see that you are not a jar at all. You are the space in which all jars appear and disappear. You are the awareness that notices the hum. And that awareness has never been incomplete. If this observation is shifting something inside you, please take a moment to hit subscribe below. Subscribing to Monk's Temple is a commitment to yourself to keep exploring these teachings. We release new guided journeys every week to help you turn down the volume of that background noise and tune into the peace that's always been here. Join our community, let's walk this path home together. So if this feeling of lack isn't solved by getting what we want, then what is it? The Buddha, in his profound psychological insight, diagnosed the root cause. He called it tanha, often translated as craving or thirst. But it's more than just wanting a cup of tea. It's a deep-seated, existential thirst for reality to be different than it is in this moment. We crave for pleasant feelings to stay. We crave for unpleasant feelings to go away. We crave for things to be other than they are. This is the engine that powers the hum. And it's driven by a fundamental misperception. The idea that we are a separate, solid self that needs to protect itself and acquire things to be complete. Modern psychology has a name for this, the narrative self or the ego. It's the story we tell ourselves about who we are. I am someone who is a success. I am someone who has been wronged. I am someone who is anxious. I am someone who needs to be loved. This narrative self is like a character in a movie. It has a past, a future, hopes, and fears. But it's just a story. It's not the full reality of what you are. The problem is, we become so identified with the character that we forget we are also the screen on which the movie is playing. The screen is never harmed by the drama unfolding on it. The screen is never made more complete by a happy scene, or less complete by a sad one. It just holds it all, perfectly, without judgment. There was once a candle maker named Samuel who took enormous pride in his craft. He believed that the quality of a candle determined the quality of the light it produced. He spent years perfecting his wax blends and wick lengths, convinced that if he could just make the perfect candle, it would illuminate the world in a way nothing else could. He became famous for his candles, and people traveled from distant towns to buy them. But Samuel himself lived in darkness. He was so focused on making the perfect container for light that he never stopped to notice the sunlight streaming through his workshop window each day. He never sat by the fire at night with his family. He was always in his workshop, always perfecting, always seeking the candle that would finally bring light into the world. The irony, of course, is that light was everywhere, all the time. It didn't need his perfect candle. It just needed his attention. Samuel's story reminds us that we are not the candle makers of our own happiness, desperately trying to craft the perfect conditions for peace to arrive. We are the light itself, temporarily obscured by our obsession with the vessel. This brings us to a beautiful paradox. If our true nature is already complete, why do we spend our entire lives searching? Why do we feel this relentless pull toward the future, toward better, toward more? Imagine you are waiting for a letter. It's the most important letter of your life. You've been told it contains the answer to a question that has haunted you for years. You check your mailbox every day, sometimes multiple times a day. But it's always empty. This emptiness becomes a source of frustration. You become a professional letter waiter. Your whole life revolves around the arrival of this letter. Now imagine that unbeknownst to you, the letter has been sitting on your kitchen table for the last 10 years. A postman delivered it long ago, slid it under your door, and you, in your fervent focus on the mailbox, never noticed it. You've been outsourcing your search to the wrong location. This is a perfect metaphor for the spiritual search. The letter is your own innate peace, your own completeness. The mailbox is the external world, the next achievement, the next relationship, the next spiritual experience. The postman is life itself, constantly delivering moments of presence, beauty, and connection that point directly to what's already inside. But we are so fixated on the mailbox, on the future arrival of something spectacular, that we miss the quiet, persistent presence of the letter that has always been here. The modern mind is addicted to the mailbox. It's addicted to the dopamine hit of checking for something new. Social media, news alerts, email notifications. They are all designed to keep us running to the mailbox. And in this constant running, we become exhausted. We become blind to the kitchen table, the space right in front of us, the simple, unadorned piece of our own being. This is why the practice of meditation is so essential. It's not about getting a new letter. It's about sitting down at the kitchen table. It's about finally looking at what's already there. You sit, you breathe, and you stop running to the mailbox. And in that stillness, you begin to notice something you've overlooked your entire life. The peace you were seeking in the future was waiting for you in the present. The answer you thought was outside was inside all along. There's a man named David who spent 30 years climbing the corporate ladder. He sacrificed weekends, missed birthdays, skipped vacations, all with the belief that once he became vice president, he would finally feel secure and respected. The day came. He got the corner office, the title, the salary. For about a week, he felt a sense of triumph. Then one morning, sitting in his leather chair, looking out at the city skyline, the familiar emptiness returned. He realized the view from the top was just another view. The ladder hadn't led him out of the hole, it had just given him a different perspective from inside it. That was the day David stopped climbing and started looking inward. He didn't quit his job. He just stopped believing that the next rung would save him. And in that shift, he began to find moments of peace right in the middle of board meetings, right in the middle of his ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday afternoons. This is the invitation. Not to stop living, but to stop living for some future payoff. To discover that the payoff is built into the present moment itself. So, if the answer is inside, why does it feel so hidden? Because our minds are like a music player with its playlist set to shuffle and repeat at the same time. A constant stream of thoughts, memories, and plans cycles through, creating a mental noise that drowns out the deeper, more subtle music of our being. Let's tell another story. There was a woman named Elena who loved music more than anything. But she had a very peculiar habit. She never listened to a whole song. She would listen to the first few seconds, then, worried she was missing something better, she'd skip to the next song. She did this for years, collecting thousands of songs but never truly experiencing any of them. Her mind was always on the next track, always convinced that the perfect song was just a skip away. She died without ever having heard a single piece of music all the way through. Our lives are often like Elena's. Our attention skips from thought to thought, from moment to moment, always looking for the perfect experience, the one that will finally satisfy us. We interrupt the present moment by judging it, comparing it to a past moment, or anticipating a future one. This sunset is beautiful, but it would be better if I were with someone. This conversation is nice, but I need to get back to work. This moment of peace is good, but how long will it last? This constant skipping is the habit of the mind. It's never satisfied with the track that's playing. It's always looking for the next one. But the next one is never the last one. It just leads to another skip, and another, in an endless, exhausting loop. The Buddha's teaching on mindfulness is the practice of finally listening to the whole song. It's the radical act of staying with the present moment, the pleasant, the unpleasant, the boring, the exciting, all the way through. It's realizing that the track that's playing right now, this very moment with all its imperfections and complexities, is the only track that exists. And when you listen to it fully, without skipping, you discover something astonishing. Every track is the perfect track. Every moment, no matter how mundane, contains the entire universe within it. This teaching can sound passive. Just be present. Stop seeking. Accept what is. It might sound like we're advocating for giving up on goals, on ambition, on life itself. But this is another misunderstanding. Letting go is not the same as giving up. It's a complete reorientation of how we engage with life. Consider this story. A business consultant was on vacation in a small coastal village. He saw a fisherman pull his small boat onto the beach with a few beautiful fish. "That took you no time at all," the consultant said. "Why don't you stay out longer and catch more fish?" The fisherman explained that this small catch was enough for his family's needs and to share with a few neighbors. "But what do you do with all your extra time?" the consultant asked. "I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take a siesta with my wife, and stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full life." The consultant scoffed. "I have an MBA from a top school. I can help you. You should spend more time fishing. With the proceeds, you can buy a bigger boat. With the profits from a bigger boat, you can buy several boats. Eventually, you would have a whole fleet. You could open your own cannery and control distribution. You could leave this tiny village and move to the capital, then to New York." The fisherman asked, "How long will all this take?" 15 to 20 years, the consultant replied. "And then what?" "You would become very rich. You would make millions. Millions. And then what?" "Then you would retire. You could move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your children, take a siesta with your wife, and stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine and play guitar with your amigos. This story perfectly illustrates the difference between seeking from a place of lack and acting from a place of wholeness. The consultant's plan is based on the assumption that the fisherman's current life is inadequate, that he needs to become someone else to finally be happy. He is chasing a future state that is an exact replica of the present moment he is advising him to abandon. The fisherman, in his simple way, is already living the life the consultant is spending 20 years to achieve. He's not passive, he fishes every day. But his action is not driven by a sense of lack. It's a natural, rhythmic part of a life he already finds complete. Acting from wholeness doesn't mean you stop having ambitions. It means your ambitions are no longer fueled by the desperate need to fill a hole inside you. You can pursue a project with passion, not because you need it to succeed to feel worthy, but because the act of creation is joyful. The difference is in the energy. One is a clenched fist, desperately trying to grab hold of life. The other is an open hand, ready to receive, to create, and to let go. How do we make this shift from the clenched fist to the open hand? How do we move from seeking fulfillment to living from fullness? It starts with a simple, profound act of re-identification. We spend our lives identifying with the clouds, the passing thoughts, the fleeting emotions, the temporary circumstances. We say, I am angry. I am sad. I am a failure. I am a success. We attach our entire sense of self to weather patterns. And because weather is always changing, our sense of self is constantly buffeted, never secure. Buddhism invites us to shift our identification from the clouds to the sky. The sky is not bothered by the clouds. It holds them all, the fluffy white ones, the dark thunderheads, the gray drizzle. It doesn't prefer one over the other. It doesn't try to hold on to a beautiful sunset cloud or chase away a storm cloud. It just provides the space for all of them to appear, play out their drama, and eventually dissolve. You are the sky. Your thoughts, feelings, and sensations are the clouds. The sky is never harmed by the most violent storm. The storm may rage, but the sky remains vast, open, and untouched. In the same way, your essential nature, the awareness that is reading these words right now, is never damaged by anger, never diminished by sadness, never improved by a good mood. It just witnesses. Let's do a small experiment. Think of a minor annoyance from yesterday. Just bring it to mind for a second. Now notice, is there a part of you that is aware of that thought? A part that is simply observing the memory arise? That observing part, still, silent, present, that's the sky. That's you. That's what the Buddha was pointing to. It's not something you need to create. It's what's left when you stop identifying with the clouds. There's a man named Arthur who lived with constant anxiety. He tried therapy, medication, exercise, diet changes. Nothing fully worked because he was approaching the problem as if he were a cloud trying to change its shape. He would say, I am an anxious person, and then try to become a calm person. But he was always identifying with the weather. One day, a friend asked him, Arthur, when you feel anxious, is there a part of you that notices the anxiety? Arthur paused. For the first time, he turned his attention not to the feeling itself, but to the one observing the feeling. In that moment, he touched something different. Not calm, exactly. Something deeper. Something that wasn't touched by the anxiety at all. He realized he had been so focused on changing the clouds that he had never noticed the sky. The anxiety didn't disappear overnight. But his relationship to it changed completely. He was no longer a cloud trying to escape itself. He was the sky, holding the storm with infinite patience. This is a revolutionary insight. If you are the sky, you have nothing to fear. You have nothing to grasp. The storms will come, and they will go. The sunny days will come, and they will go. But you, the vast, open, aware presence, remain. This is the peace that surpasses understanding. It's not the peace of a calm day, it's the peace of the sky that holds both the calm and the storm. A huge part of our suffering comes from living our lives as if they are a dress rehearsal for the real thing. We treat the present moment as a mere stepping stone to a more important future moment. Childhood is a rehearsal for adulthood. School is a rehearsal for a career. A job is a rehearsal for retirement. We are constantly in a state of getting ready, and we miss that the performance is already underway. Here's a story. A young actor named Marcus landed his first big role in a play. He was so excited, so nervous. He spent every waking moment rehearsing his lines, perfecting his gestures, anticipating what the audience would think. On opening night, he was a bundle of nerves, but he delivered a flawless performance. The critics raved. He was a star. But he was also exhausted. He had been so focused on the opening night that he had forgotten to enjoy the process of rehearsal. He had forgotten to connect with the other actors, to explore the character, to play. After the play closed, he felt a deep sense of emptiness. He had achieved his goal, but the journey there had been a blur of anxiety. For his next role, he did something different. He decided to treat every rehearsal as if it were the opening night. He brought the same level of presence, the same joy, to the empty theater as he did to the full house. He stopped getting ready to live and just started living. His performance on opening night was, of course, even better, because it wasn't a frantic culmination, it was a natural extension of how he had been living all along. Our lives are the same. We are so fixated on the opening night, the graduation, the wedding, the promotion, the retirement, that we forget that the entire run is the show. The moments of waiting, the moments of struggle, the mundane Tuesdays, these are not the rehearsal, they are the play. They are your life. When you stop treating your life as a rehearsal, you stop postponing your happiness. You stop telling yourself, I'll be happy when. And you start finding the happiness that is available in the when. The joy is not in reaching the destination, the joy is in the quality of attention you bring to the journey itself. Every step, even the difficult ones, becomes the destination. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the hum of lack, the trap of the moving goalpost, the sky-like nature of awareness, and the folly of living life as a rehearsal. How do we bring all of this together? How do we actually live from this understanding? Imagine a radio. It has the capacity to pick up hundreds of different stations. Jazz, classical, news, talk radio, pop. At any given moment, you are tuned into one of them. If you're tuned into the anxiety station, your experience will be one of worry and fear. If you're tuned into the resentment station, your experience will be one of bitterness and blame. If you're tuned into the I'm not good enough station, your life will feel like a constant struggle for validation. But here's the most important thing to know. There is also a station called peace. It's always broadcasting. The signal is constant, unwavering, eternal. It's not a station you have to create or invent. It's always there. The only question is, are you tuned into it? Most of us have forgotten that we have a dial. We've been listening to the same few chaotic stations for so long that we think they're the only ones that exist. We think life is anxiety and striving. But the peace station is still broadcasting. It never goes off the air. The entire spiritual path is simply the process of remembering you have a dial, and learning how to turn it. You can't force the radio to pick up a station. You can't yell at it. You just gently turn the dial until the static clears and the music emerges. It's a subtle, gentle process. There was a woman named Grace who lived in a constant state of overwhelm. She had a demanding career, 3 children, aging parents to care for, and a never-ending to-do list. Her mind was a non-stop broadcast of worry, planning, and self-criticism. She tried meditation apps, yoga classes, weekend retreats. They helped temporarily, but the static always returned. One evening, completely exhausted, she sat on her porch and just listened. She wasn't trying to meditate. She wasn't trying to calm down. She just listened to the sounds around her, crickets, a distant dog barking, the wind in the trees. And in that simple act of listening, she noticed something. Beneath all the noise in her head, there was a silence. It had always been there, like the background hum of the universe, but she had been too busy with the foreground noise to notice it. She realized she didn't need to create peace. She just needed to tune into the peace that was already playing beneath the chaos. From that night on, whenever the overwhelm returned, she would pause and listen for the silence underneath. It was always there, always waiting, always free. Meditation is the practice of finding the dial. In the quiet, you begin to notice the static of your own thoughts. And in the gaps between the static, you catch a faint whisper of another frequency. The frequency of stillness. The frequency of peace. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to find that frequency. Eventually, you learn to live your whole life from that station. Let me share another story about a man named Thomas who lived his entire life in a small village far from the sea. He had read about the ocean in books and dreamed of its vastness. He spent his life accumulating wealth and resources to fund a great expedition to finally see it. After decades of work, he was finally ready. He packed his bags, kissed his family goodbye, and set off on his journey. He walked for days, over hills and through valleys, driven by the vision of the magnificent ocean. Finally, after a long and arduous trek, he arrived at the coast. He stood on a cliff, tears in his eyes, and looked out at the horizon. It was everything he had imagined and more. He spent the rest of the day on the beach, walking in the surf, feeling the sand between his toes, listening to the rhythm of the waves. As the sun began to set, he felt a deep sense of contentment. His life's mission was complete. He decided to spend the night on the beach. In the morning, he woke up, and the first thing he saw was the ocean. He spent another blissful day there. This continued for a week. Then 2 weeks. Then a month. The months turned into years. Thomas never went back to his village. He built a small hut on the beach and lived out the rest of his life there, every single day, in the presence of the ocean he had spent his whole life trying to reach. Now, here's the question for you. Did Thomas arrive at the ocean on that first day when he stood on the cliff? Or did he arrive every single morning he woke up and saw it? The answer is both. He had a moment of arrival, but that moment was just the beginning of an ongoing, living relationship with the ocean. He stopped seeking it and started living from it. This is what it means to come home to yourself. The ocean of your own being is not a destination you reach once and then you're done. It's a living reality you learn to live from, moment by moment. There might be a moment of recognition, a moment of arrival where you see clearly, this is what I am. But that's not the end. It's the beginning of a life lived from the shore of your own true nature. Every breath becomes a wave. Every moment becomes an expression of the vast, deep, peaceful ocean that you have always been. There's a question that arises naturally when we begin to glimpse this truth. If I am already complete, if peace is always broadcasting, then what about my desires? What about my goals? What about my ambition to grow, to achieve, to become? Does this teaching ask me to stop wanting anything at all? This is a crucial point of misunderstanding. Buddhism does not ask us to kill desire. It asks us to understand the difference between two kinds of wanting. The first kind is rooted in lack. It comes from the belief that something is missing, that we are incomplete, and that acquiring this thing will finally make us whole. This kind of wanting is like drinking salt water. The more you get, the thirstier you become. It's exhausting because it's based on a lie, the lie that you are not already enough. But there is another kind of wanting. It's not rooted in lack but in fullness. It's the natural expression of life energy moving through you. A tree doesn't grow toward the sun because it feels inadequate. It grows because growth is its nature. A river doesn't flow toward the sea because it's incomplete. It flows because that's what rivers do. This is the difference between seeking from emptiness and expressing from fullness. Let me tell you about a potter named Eliza. She worked with clay for over 40 years. In her early days, she was driven by a desperate need to prove herself. She wanted her pots to be in galleries, to be praised by critics, to be better than the other potters in her village. This drive made her successful, but it also made her miserable. Every flaw in a pot felt like a personal failure. Every compliment from a rival felt like a threat. She was successful, but she was not at peace. One day, a young apprentice asked her, "Eliza, why do you make pots?" The question stopped her cold. She realized she had been so focused on the results, the sales, the praise, the reputation, that she had forgotten the simple joy of the clay in her hands. So she made a decision. For 1 year, she would make pots without selling a single one. She would make them just to make them. She would explore the clay without any attachment to the outcome. That year changed everything. She discovered forms she had never attempted before. She made mistakes that led to unexpected beauty. She fell in love with the process itself. At the end of the year, she returned to selling her work, but something was different. The desperation was gone. The fear of failure was gone. She still cared about quality, still wanted her pots to be beautiful, but the clenched fist had relaxed. She was creating from fullness, not from lack. And ironically, her work became more sought after than ever before. Eliza's story shows us the difference between the two kinds of wanting. The first kind says, "I need this pot to be perfect so that I can feel worthy." The second kind says, I wonder what this clay wants to become today. One is driven by fear. The other is driven by curiosity and love. The Buddha spoke of this distinction when he taught about chanda, which means wholesome desire or intention. This is the desire for well-being, for wisdom, for liberation. It's not the desire to acquire something outside yourself. It's the desire to express more fully what you already are. It's the desire to suffer less, to love more, to be more awake. This kind of desire doesn't lead to grasping. It leads to freedom. There's a gardener named Hiro who tended a small plot of land behind his home. He didn't garden for money or recognition. He gardened because he loved watching things grow. Every morning, he would walk through his garden, not to check on his investment, but simply to say hello to his plants. He noticed when a new leaf appeared. He noticed when the soil needed water. He noticed the way the light fell differently on each flower. One year, a drought came. Many gardens in the area failed. Hiro's garden suffered too, but it didn't die. Because he had been tending it with attention all along, the roots were deep. The soil was healthy. When the rains finally returned, his garden flourished again. His neighbors asked him his secret. He said, I don't have a secret. I just love my garden. I don't love it for what it gives me. I love it for itself. And that love shows up in every drop of water, every handful of compost, every moment of attention. This is how we can tend our own lives. Not as a project to be completed, not as a problem to be solved, but as a garden to be loved. We water what needs watering. We pull weeds when they appear. We enjoy the flowers when they bloom and trust the bare patches in winter. We do this not because we're trying to become something, but because this is what love does. It tends. It cares. It pays attention. So the question is not whether to desire. The question is what kind of desire is moving through you. Is it the desperate grasping of a self that believes it's incomplete? Or is it the natural expression of a life that knows its own fullness and wants to share that fullness with the world? One leads to exhaustion. The other leads to joy. One is a clenched fist. The other is an open hand, ready to receive, ready to create, ready to let go. There's something about water that teaches us one of life's most essential lessons, if we're willing to pay attention. Try to grasp water in your hands and you'll discover something both frustrating and profound. The harder you squeeze, the more it escapes. The tighter your grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. But cup your hands gently and water will rest there peacefully, available for whatever purpose you need. This simple truth about water reveals something fundamental about how life itself works. The more you try to force outcomes, the more they seem to elude you. The more desperately you chase happiness, the more it retreats. The more urgently you demand that people love you, the more they pull away. The more you insist that circumstances align with your desires, the more chaotic everything becomes. But when you learn to hold life lightly, when you can want something without grasping it, pursue dreams without demanding them, love people without possessing them, something magical begins to happen. Life starts to flow toward you instead of away from you. Opportunities arise naturally. Relationships deepen organically. Solutions appear in ways you could never have orchestrated through force. The Buddha understood this principle so deeply that he made it the heart of his third noble truth. He taught that freedom from suffering comes not through getting what we want, but through releasing our attachment to needing things to be different than they are. This teaching points to a radical shift in how we relate to desire, to outcomes, and to life itself. But let's be clear about what this doesn't mean. Surrender doesn't mean becoming passive, giving up on your dreams, or accepting harmful situations without response. True surrender is not resignation or defeat. It's something far more intelligent and powerful. It's the art of aligning yourself with life's deeper rhythm instead of fighting against it. Think of a skilled dancer. They don't force the music to conform to their movements. Instead, they listen so deeply to the rhythm that their movements become a natural expression of what they hear. They surrender to the music, and in that surrender, they find a freedom of expression that would be impossible through forcing. There's a story about a woman named Priya who was a brilliant pianist. From the age of 5, she practiced relentlessly. She won competitions, earned acclaim, performed in concert halls around the world. But somewhere along the way, music stopped being joyful and became a burden. Every performance was judged. Every recording was compared to her previous ones. She became terrified of making mistakes, terrified of disappointing her audience, terrified of losing her reputation. One night, before a major concert, she sat alone on the stage of an empty hall. The pressure was unbearable. In that moment of despair, she made a decision. She would play this concert not for the critics, not for the audience, not for her career. She would play it for herself, as if no one was listening. She would surrender her attachment to the outcome and just let the music flow through her. The next night, she walked onto the stage and played like she had never played before. Her fingers moved, but she wasn't forcing them. The music emerged, but she wasn't controlling it. She was simply present, simply listening, simply allowing. Afterward, people came backstage with tears in their eyes. They said it was the most moving performance of her life. Priya smiled and said, "For the first time, I wasn't playing for you. I was playing with the music." This is the paradox of surrender. When Priya stopped trying to be a great pianist and just let the music play through her, she became greater than she had ever been. When we stop trying to control life and start flowing with it, we don't lose ourselves. We find ourselves. We discover capacities we never knew we had. We access creativity that was blocked by our own grasping. The Buddha's teaching on non-attachment reveals something profound about the nature of suffering itself. Most of our pain doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from our resistance to what happens to us. It comes from our insistence that reality should be different than it is. It comes from our attachment to outcomes that may or may not occur. When you can learn to want without grasping, to prefer without demanding, to hope without attachment, you discover a kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. This peace doesn't come from getting what you want. It comes from releasing the insistence that you must have what you want in order to be okay. There's a man named Carlos who spent 20 years trying to write a novel. He wrote and rewrote the first chapter hundreds of times. He researched agents and publishers. He compared himself to successful authors and felt like a failure. The novel never got finished because he was too attached to it being perfect, too attached to it being a success, too attached to what it would say about him. One day, a friend said to him, "Carlos, why don't you just write something terrible on purpose? Write the worst novel you can imagine, just for fun." Carlos laughed, but he tried it. He sat down and wrote without any attachment to quality. He wrote badly on purpose, and something remarkable happened. He had fun. Words flowed. Ideas emerged. By the end of the month, he had written an entire novel. It wasn't terrible. It was actually quite good. But more importantly, Carlos had rediscovered the joy of writing. He had surrendered his attachment to the outcome and found the process itself was enough. This is the invitation. Not to stop caring, but to care more deeply about the process than the product. Not to stop wanting, but to want with open hands instead of clenched fists. Not to stop pursuing dreams, but to pursue them from a place of fullness rather than lack. The water of life flows constantly. You can spend your life trying to grasp it, watching it slip away, and dying thirsty. Or you can cup your hands gently, drink deeply from this moment, and discover that the water was never going anywhere. It was always here, always available, always enough. Let's explore what this open-handed living actually looks like in the messy, complicated reality of daily life. Because it's easy to feel peaceful sitting here, listening to a calming voice. It's quite another thing to maintain that peace when your child is having a meltdown, when your boss criticizes your work, when the bills are piling up, when your body starts to ache and fail. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where spiritual understanding becomes genuine transformation. Not in the quiet moments, but in the chaotic ones. Not on the meditation cushion, but in the traffic jam. Not in the temple, but in the kitchen. There's a man named Derek who worked as an emergency room nurse. For 15 years, he had watched people arrive in their worst moments, heart attacks, car accidents, violent attacks. He had seen suffering up close, day after day. And for 15 years, he had tried to protect himself from it. He built walls around his heart. He stopped feeling. He became efficient, competent, and completely numb. One night, a young mother was brought in after a car accident. Her injuries were severe. Derek did everything he could, but she didn't make it. As he stood there, surrounded by beeping machines and urgent voices, something cracked inside him. The walls he had built came tumbling down. He felt the full weight of that loss, the full force of his own helplessness, the full ache of being human in a world where terrible things happen. For weeks afterward, he considered quitting. The pain was too much. But then he had a realization. His numbness hadn't been protecting him. It had been isolating him from the very thing that made his work meaningful, connection. He had been so afraid of the difficult feelings that he had blocked all feelings, including compassion, including love, including the profound sense of shared humanity that comes from being present with suffering. He returned to work with a different approach. He stopped trying to protect himself. He let himself feel. He let himself cry with families. He let himself hold space for grief. And something unexpected happened. The pain didn't destroy him. It transformed him. He became not just a better nurse, but a more alive human being. He discovered that the heart is not a fragile thing that needs protection. It's a muscle that grows stronger with use. It's an ocean that can hold any storm without being damaged. This is what the Buddha meant by the middle way. Not the path of numbness, not the path of indulgence, but the path of full, conscious engagement with life as it is. The path of feeling everything without being overwhelmed by anything. The path of opening to experience without grasping or resisting. There's another story about a woman named Frances who was terrified of flying. Every time she had to get on a plane, she would spend weeks in anxiety. She would white-knuckle her way through takeoff, gripping the armrests, praying for it to be over. She tried everything to escape the fear: medication, alcohol, distraction. Nothing worked. One day, a therapist said to her, "Frances, what if you stopped trying to escape the fear? What if you just sat with it? What if you invited it in for tea?" Frances thought this was crazy, but she was desperate. On her next flight, as the anxiety rose, she didn't fight it. She didn't distract herself. She just sat there, breathing, and said to the fear, "I see you. I feel you. You're welcome to be here." And something shifted. The fear was still there, but it wasn't in charge anymore. It was just a sensation in her body, just a passing cloud in the sky of her awareness. By the time the plane landed, she realized she had survived. Not only survived, but she had discovered something crucial. The fear itself wasn't the problem. Her resistance to the fear was the problem. When she stopped fighting, the fear became manageable. This is a profound teaching for all of us. Whatever you're resisting will persist. Whatever you're fighting will fight back. Whatever you're trying to escape will chase you. But when you turn toward your experience with openness and curiosity, something shifts. The monster under the bed, when illuminated by awareness, often turns out to be just a pile of old clothes. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness is exactly this: learning to be present with whatever arises, without judgment, without resistance, without grasping. Not just with pleasant experiences, but with the unpleasant ones too. Not just with calm, but with chaos. Not just with love, but with loss. There's a final story about a man named Walter who spent his entire life trying to be happy. He chased success, accumulated possessions, sought pleasure. And yet, in his 70s, he found himself deeply unhappy. He went to see a wise teacher and asked, "I've tried everything. Why am I still not happy?" The teacher handed him a glass of water and said, "Take this glass and walk around the room without spilling a single drop." Walter did as he was told, walking slowly, carefully, his eyes fixed on the glass. When he finished, the teacher asked, "Did you spill any?" "No," Walter said proudly. "Now," said the teacher, "walk around the room again, but this time, notice everything. The color of the walls, the texture of the carpet, the light coming through the window, the sound of my voice. Don't focus on the glass. Just let it be in your hand while you experience everything else." Walter did this, and when he finished, the teacher asked, "Did you spill any?" Walter looked down. The glass was still full. "Then tell me," the teacher said, "which walk was more alive? Which walk was more like living?" Walter understood. For his entire life, he had been so focused on not spilling the glass, on protecting his happiness, on controlling the outcome, that he had missed the entire experience of being alive. The glass is always in your hand. Life will always have its challenges, its risks, its potential for pain. But you don't have to spend your life staring at the glass. You can hold it lightly, trust your own balance, and look around at the miracle of existence that surrounds you. This is the art of living from fullness. This is the path of the open hand. As our journey together draws to a close, hold this simple image in your heart. A radio station is always broadcasting. The music never stops playing. You don't need to compose it or create it. You don't need to earn it or deserve it. You just need to tune in. This is exactly how peace works. It's not something you manufacture through effort or achieve through striving. It's not a reward for good behavior or a prize for getting everything right. It's a frequency that's always available, always present, always playing. The question is never whether peace exists. The question is always whether you're tuned into it. Throughout these hours together, we've explored the many ways we accidentally tune away. The hum of lack that convinces us something is missing. The moving goalpost that keeps us perpetually chasing. The clouds we mistake for the sky. The rehearsal we mistake for the real performance. But you are not the clouds. You are the vast, open sky that holds them all. You are not the wave desperately trying to reach the ocean. You are the ocean itself, dreaming it's a wave. The Buddha's teaching was simple and profound. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Not as abstract philosophy, but as a practical truth you can verify in your own experience right now. In this very moment, beneath whatever thoughts are passing through, beneath whatever feelings are arising, there is a stillness. It has always been there. It will always be there. It is your true nature. You carry the dial with you always. This is the most liberating truth of all. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to become anyone else. You don't need to wait for circumstances to change. In moments of stress, you can pause and ask yourself, what frequency am I tuned into right now? In times of conflict, you can choose understanding over being right. In periods of uncertainty, you can choose trust over fear. The dial is always in your hands. The choice is always yours. Before we part ways, know that you are not alone in this remembering. People all over the world have been listening to these words, tuning into the same frequency of possibility and peace. Whether you're in a bustling city or a quiet village, in the middle of the night or the bright afternoon, you've been part of a global community finding their way home to themselves. Every time you choose peace over panic, love over fear, presence over distraction, you contribute to a collective tuning. You make it easier for others to find their way home too. Your awakening is not just for you. It's a gift to everyone whose life you touch. Sometimes you'll drift. You'll find yourself tuned into old stations, worry, resentment, the feeling of not being enough. That's completely human, completely okay. When you notice, simply reach for the dial with gentleness. No judgment. No frustration. No self-criticism. Just a gentle turn back toward the frequency that feels like home. Thank you for walking this path with us here at Monk's Temple. Thank you for your willingness to remember who you truly are. Thank you for the courage to consider that you might already be everything you've been seeking. The station is always broadcasting. The peace you've been seeking has been seeking you. Welcome home to yourself. Welcome home to the wholeness you never actually left. May your journey continue in every breath, every step, every moment of your precious, beautiful life.